checked it. It takes like a few seconds. And like bang, like Swiss Railway, they say we're exactly on time and on second. And you know, when we are working with someone like Dave Hussey, we have to be on time because, you know, if anybody, you know, has a busy schedule, then that's him. So, Dave, hello. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you fine, Dado.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
yeah, excellent. Thank you. Nice. First of all, thank you so much for taking like a time off. I mean, you know, I don't think I ever like spoken to colorists who had such a tight schedule as you did, and I really, really, really appreciate that you have taken the time to speak to our colorist community. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent, good. Look, you know, I just want to tell you that, you know, we are all super excited about this one, and we've been waiting for a long time. Last year, we sent a little questionnaire. We asked our, you know, members, I said, who would you like to see? And your name popped up the most. Like people, like, you know, we want to see Dave Hussey, Dave Hussey. And I'm so happy that this has really happened, you know, so that, you know, we are like, you know, like now finally talking. You know, there is a fantastic group of people here. You know, like I just want to say hi to, you know, to some of them. You know, I do know them. They're like our regulars. So Marcelo is here from Brazil. And guys, say hi and say where you're from. You know, like just go use a chat. You know, this is, oh my God, Andrew's here. Juan is here. Hello, Juan. Then we have a Nadia. You know, she's a little discovery. I just kind of met Nadia this week. She was doing a course with us. What a very talented colorist. She's also a very talented singer as well. So I'm so happy. Adrian is here. You know, Julian from Ecuador, you know, Indonesia, Rio de Janeiro, Sweden. You know, this is exactly what I love about this. You know, this kind of big international colorist community. You know, and you know, one way, you know, that we used to learn is to kind of assist and work with professional colorists, and you know, this is now just almost impossible. Like, you know, I mean, you don't really get much opportunity to be an assistant. And you know, these talks are a way for us to replace that kind of, you know, way of learning, and at least like virtually meet, you know, people. And guys, you know, for those of you who have not necessarily met Dave or Google Dave, I just really want you to kind of, you know, understand that you know, he is number one, you know, commercials colorist in the world. And there comes Dave Hussey, and then there is a space, and then everybody else. This is how I kind of see it. You know, he's graded like a more music videos than, you know, you were able to watch on YouTube. I mean, I think we calculated you said something like 3,000, and it still felt like, like being exactly how many days would have taken it to do this. It was almost like, whatever, 3.5 years of constant work, just like that.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been 2 or 3 thousand music videos over the years. It's something I've really
Insane.
enjoyed.
Insane. This is crazy. I mean, when I heard it, I was like, how is this possible? How can you like,
Yeah.
do so many? I can't believe this. In any case, like, I want to start, Dave, like with, always the first question we start is, how did you start? How, were you like just born and you said, I'm going to be a colorist, from the moment you started walking, or how did it happen? So tell me.
Well, I grew up in a very small place in Cape Breton Island. It's a northern part of Nova Scotia. And, I didn't have a lot of access to television production or anything. But when I was going to go into high school, my mom mentioned to me that there was a TV broadcasting program in high school that I could take for 3 hours a day. And I thought it sounded interesting because I always thought, I loved films and all that. So I thought, well, I'll do that. So I started taking TV broadcasting in high school. And then I went to film school in Thunder Bay, Ontario, or a college called Confederation College. That was just a 2-year program. And I thought maybe I'd want to be an editor or, something in the post-production line, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So I graduated from Confederation after 2 years, and then I moved to Toronto. And I was basically just looking for any kind of job in post-production. And it was the early 80s, and the economy wasn't very good. So it was very difficult to find a job. So finally, I did get a job as an assistant editor, which is, it's basically loading up 1-inch videotapes and recording sessions and, just unloading tapes, basically, whatever I could to get into the business. So once I got this job in post-production, one day I was looking at the online editors, and everybody wanted to be an online editor at that point. And I happened to walk by this one telecine bay because we only had one. And I kind of just poked my head in, and the colorist was working away, and I just started watching him. And that's what got my initial interest into coloring. But back then it was very basic.
And what year was that? When was it? Like, I mean...
That was 1983.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I actually don't even think I knew that Telecine even existed by then, like 83. You're kidding me. This is amazing. So you basically kind of, asked that guy who was operating Telecine to show you a little bit, or what happened?
Yeah, his name was Stuart Hurst, and he used to work for Ranks and Tel. He actually built the Ranks. And so he was an engineer by trade, but since there were very few colorists in the country, he became a colorist too, and actually a very good one. So he would maintain the Rank Centel, which was no easy trick because those machines back in those days weren't so reliable. So he would fix them, and he would go in and color correct for the client as well.
This is just crazy. Oh my God.
So one of my first jobs, I thought this was very funny, was a man who owned a meat packing company bought this factory, and he discovered a whole bunch of film in the factory, and he wanted to get it on video somehow. And he came to our company and asked, if we could color correct and transfer all of this footage to video. I don't think he was so worried about like copyright infringement or anything. I don't think he understood. So we said, sure, we'd be happy to. And it was a perfect job for me to color. And we said, well, this is what the rate is per hour for me to color correct this film for you. And he looked kind of hesitant, and we were like, what's the problem? And he goes, well, I'd be more comfortable if you could just do it by the pound. So if you could just weigh the film and charge me whatever that rate is by the pound.
This is
So we did.
No. So what, you brought the scale and you put the film on the scale? So I've never. Man, this is a this is a new way of looking at you know, we charge by the weight. I mean, it's great. because because the guy is running meat packing company, he doesn't do an hour, right? I love it. Hey, I sorry to interrupt. I just have to say, Stu Maschwitz say hi, you know, and he's with us.
Oh,
I
it's
can't
you. Yeah.
believe, you know, it's so nice to see him. I mean, like he's the one we learned from him a lot. You know, he's such a great guy. And also, you know, Jeff Olm says you're his favorite Canadian colorist, by the way. So just so you know, I think you're representing Canada today. It seems like it, you're flying Canadian flag.
Well, Jeff I've known for almost 30 years. We actually I should just continue the story really quickly
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Jeff connects
go
to it.
ahead. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So I worked in Toronto at in Magnetic North for about 6 years, and then I got a call from Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, Florida, and they had just built a studio with a post production facility that was run by a company called the Post Group in Hollywood. So they asked me if I would like to come down and start coloring in Orlando. And that's where I met Jeff because Jeff was working there as well. And this is like around 1990. So I was happy to get out of Toronto weather for a little while. So I said, Florida, great. Let's color there. And we were working on a TV series called Superboy.
Uh-huh.
What happened though is when I came down and started coloring, I realized that we were on the Disney tour as well. So on the other side of the glass, as I was coloring, there were 3,000 people an hour walking by watching us color correct.
You were attraction. You were like part of
Yes,
that studio attraction.
I was a Disney attraction. So that was hilarious, and it was day and night. So you always kind of had to realize you could never forget that people were watching you the whole time. And sometimes we're eating while we're working, and it's just very uncomfortable to be having a hamburger and then watching all these people kind of go by in the dark.
No, no speaking either, right? You know, it's like you have to be careful.
No.
Oh my God.
So from that point, I stayed at Disney for about a year, and the Post Group in Hollywood were just overwhelmed with work, and they asked me if I would like to move to Hollywood to start working with the main company. And I'd never even considered moving to LA, but it seemed like a good opportunity. So I packed up the dog and moved to Hollywood. And I was initially, I knew nothing about LA, like nothing. And so I was in Hollywood, you know, which was not Hollywood's best time really in 1990. It was kind of a rough place back then.
Oh wow.
But
Yeah.
I started my I started working in my LA career at the Post Group, and it was a very famous, old facility, and I was there for quite a while.
So how many years were you at the Post group?
I was at the Post Group from 1990 to roughly around 1997. And during that period of time, like in around 1992 or so, Stefan Sonnenfeld, who's actually the president of Company 3, I met him. He was coloring, just starting his career in coloring at the Post Group. So we became friends, and after a few years, he decided to work at Pacific Ocean Post in Santa Monica. And we were, mentally, we were very kind of Hollywood centric. So we thought, this is a little odd that he's going to work in Santa Monica, but that's where a lot of the agencies were. So Stefan left. And then in late 1996, I got a letter from Stefan, or it might have been a phone call, I can't remember. But, basically asking me if I wanted to join him and Mike Pethel. They were the two partners that formed Company 3. And they asked me if I'd like to join them. And I was pretty happy at the Post Group.
Can I ask you this? So there was only two partners, and it was called Company 3. So were they just
Well, it
looking
wasn't
for...
called Company 3 at that point. It was just a company at that point.
All right, all right. So they were not called Company 3 to begin with. No, they were just called Company, right? Or what?
Well, this was before the company really started. They were just trying to get everything organized. And Mike Peffel and Stefan were, very well-known, respected commercial colorists, and I think they wanted to do their own thing, and that's why they decided to start a new company together. And so then they asked me if I would join, and I was pretty comfortable at the Post Group, so I wrote Stefan a really nice letter saying, respectfully, I think you guys are great, but I think I'm going to stay at the Post Group. I'm happy here, and I'm going
You
to
said no.
just.
You said no,
I
right?
said no. I said no.
Oh my God.
So Stefan's like, "Are you sure? This would probably be a good opportunity." And I'm like, "No, I'm happy. I'm good." So anyway, so then a few months went by, and every time I would do a session, or not every time, but some of the times I would do a session, Stefan would find out who the clients were, and then he would talk to them and get the clients to try and convince me to come to company three.
No, you did not do
So basically, for after 3 months of like having all my clients say, you really should, go with Steph. I just put the white surrender flag up and said, okay, Steph, I'm coming. And
Oh
so
my
I was
God.
basically their employee number one, I guess.
And you still are. So you're the employee number. And is this then when you turned the name and made the name Company Three? Is this where the Company Three comes from? Because it was three of you. Is this how the name came about?
Uh, some people say that. There's a lot of different. I had heard stories about how we were so busy at the time that
Uh-huh.
the corporation that initially owned us, they had to
Uh-huh.
buy equipment, and
Uh-huh.
so there had already been a like just to buy equipment, you have to have some kind of company name,
Uh-huh.
and company one was already used, company two was already used, so we were just company three, so we could buy equipment. That's one of the rumors. I don't know if that's totally true or not.
But what a wonderful! But it's such a beautiful name. I have to say, like Company Three today is the most recognized brand for color in. I mean, and it's gonna stay like that. I think everybody's losing, and you're the only company that's growing. It seems like it from all the big iron, you're the only ones. It's amazing. Like how it started with just the two guys, doing telecine, poaching one more guy, and then boom, look where you are today. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. I
I
love
think
this.
the thing that appealed to me was that I think Steph and Mike's attitude was that they wanted us to be our own salespeople. I mean, the business is very different today, and you need salespeople, of course. But back in those days, we sold ourselves, and we had our clients, and we just
Mm.
made sure every session we did was as good as we could possibly do, so they would keep coming back and keep our company going and being successful. And just that strategy, I think,
Ah.
worked out very well.
But I have to tell you one thing as well. Like, I think one thing which is really interesting about Company 3 as a strategy is that they really emphasize the artistry of their people, right? They were never a company that would, boost, oh, we have this equipment or we can do this technology. No, it was always about the skill and not skill, just artistry. They were always emphasizing people that work for us, colorists, have special gift. They're artists in their own way. And I think I really love that. And I think this is really could be one of the reasons why people were so drawn, even today when this technology is so widely available to work with you, because they recognize that it's not about the technology as much as, the skill of person who's working.
Right. Yeah, there were some companies that the way they would their ideology was that, okay, just bring your work to our company and we'll take care of you. But it wasn't
Mhm.
like that so much with us. It's like we were very personal about it. Like I would say, I want to do this job. I'm gonna take care of you, not the corporate
Mm.
thing. And that's how we were all individuals doing our best work. And I think that paid off.
Very good. So, by the way, Mark Todd Osborne says hi. He spent some time with you. You're not there. He says he was. Now we know him. He was a Stefan's assistant for years, so he's
Oh
here with
yes,
us as well.
we're old friends. Yes, Mark was with us for quite some time.
Yeah,
I love
actually, and
Mark.
he's kind of running really good, interesting, like a independent shop at the moment. I really like what he's doing. Like he's kind of doing his own thing, which is very very good actually. Now I want to ask you one question, which is really interesting because you're best positioned to answer this question. I don't know anybody better in the industry to give me that answer. In comparison to how you work back then, when it was all starting, I would just love to know, like, what do you think? How do we work today? You have an idea how industry changed. Most of us, and at least I can
Yeah.
say for myself, I came into it like when it was already kind of digital, right? It wasn't really, so film driven. So I would love to understand, how was it, back then in the 90s, and how do we work today? What's the difference? How have things evolved and changed?
Um, a lot of things have changed. Initially, like in the '90s, because we were shooting film, what would happen, say for a music video, the production would go out and shoot for 3 or 4 days on a production. And then what would happen is they would get their film processed. And then the day after the shoot, everything's processed, they would come into Telecine and we would color correct all of the footage. We didn't do selects. We would do the whole thing. And so the clients would, and I have to say, the good thing about that system was that the clients would come in to the Telecine session the day after the shoot. The DP could come in and look at the footage and say, I did this well. Maybe I could have done something a little different here, but they could actually study their work, on a shot by shot basis as I'm going through it and color correcting. The other thing is I would hear so many stories because they would be doing a post-mortem on their shoot the day after the shoot. So I would hear everything that went right, everything that went wrong, all their crazy production stories. Yes. And it was almost like an exhausted party. Everybody would come in after shooting for that many days, be really tired, but they would be more relaxed and laid back, and they could discuss everything, so...
be upset with people who upset them, be happy about stuff. Yeah.
You would hear everything. And some clients used to joke that my bay should be called the confessional because I would hear it all. but I'll tell you that the one thing that I miss about, or one of the things I miss about those days is I would see the director. I would see the director of photography. So because if you spend 6 to 12 hours with somebody, in a long day, you can develop a relationship with them and they become your friends and you just know each other because you're not just talking about work, you're talking about your family, you're talking about everything. So you're truly, it might be work friends, but you're really friends with them. And many of those relationships that I started in the 90s, I still work with these people now. But the difference is I don't get to see them because, in music videos, for example, they'll shoot, then they just edit everything, and then I only do the selected pieces. And by the time the cut gets approved, the DP this could be 2 or 3 weeks later, so the DP is off on another shoot, and I may only be working with the director, and that would be it. So it's very different that way. Yeah.
So wait. So basically, what you're saying is that you would grade, and there wouldn't be necessary DP coming and giving instructions, or director, or so basically. So did it happen that agencies have taken over completely of that process, that they're basically driving it?
I'm generalizing, but in most cases, like when I do a commercial now, the director may call me and give me some thoughts about, where he'd like it to go. But I'm mostly, in most cases, working with the agency, and I'm working with the creative directors and the art directors, about how they want things to be. So when I'm coloring with the creative directors, I'm trying to, look at the footage and think about what the director and photographer had in mind, but also I have to be cognizant of what the agency wants as well. But I'm always in the room with the agency mostly. Again, there are exceptions to that. I do work with some directors who run the whole thing through. They come through and they follow everything, but usually it's the agency.
Right. Now, I want to ask another thing, which is also like something because when I'm watching your work, some colorists have got a certain style, and you look at a movie, you could almost guess who could have graded it, right? They have like some sort of feel. But I look through your work, and it's just so different, right? You have this commercial, this music video, and everything is just like, almost its own category. Like you have got such a, palette of different, looks and feels and everything you do. You definitely, there is no like Dave Hussey look. I mean, there is this finish, probably you kind of love it, but you totally like move. And can you say also that looks go in and out of fashion, that there is some sort of feel that kind of people like certain ages, and then kind of there's a new look that is popular in 2020 or something like that? Do you see that there is like some sort of styles that come and go? How does that work from your point of view?
Yeah, there's definitely styles that come and go. I mean, in the '90s, there was a box called the K-Scope, and it kind of created a really soft glow to skin. And if you look
Hmm.
at every, or not every, but in some music videos from that era, you'll see it. It like everybody's kind of glowing and soft. And then, years later, when people were shooting the 5D and even a little bit before, a very flat, low contrast look was very popular. And then we go through stages sometimes where everything's very poppy and contrasty. And I always watched television and just kind of see what's going on. I think now more than ever, there's a wider range of looks that are happening. It's not all just everything's flat now, or there's you can look at TV and you see a variety of different feels and things. I think to get back to your point about why I probably don't have like a consistent look in how I color. It's just how my career went. When I joined the Post Group, I would one day be working on an episode of Law and Order, which had a very specific look, and then that night I may be working on a Billy Idol music video, which would be something completely different. And then the next day you might be working on a car commercial, which is another thing. So I never really like. There are many very good colorists who they do features, and that's what they're amazing at, and they usually don't jump out of that genre. They're feature people, whereas I will do 2 or 3 movies a year, but I will also do TV. I'll do commercials and music videos. So I always have a lot of different things going
You
on.
do, and that's an incredible. I mean, this is so rare, that, and actually, that brings me really perfectly to the next point. I want to now play to everybody, my personally like favorite piece of your work. That I think it's absolutely like reference work, and it's gonna be actually not a commercial, believe it or not. I think what you did in Red Sparrow. It was just unbelievable. I have to thank you for that, because this was such a like a I mean that I felt the whole movie looked like a long form commercial, like for some sort of Chanel or something like that. You know what I mean? Like their clothes that she was wearing and everything. It just looked, in her face, it was immaculate. The beauty. I mean, like honestly, like this movie was just such a kind of absolutely gorgeous looking. And if you don't mind, I'm just gonna quickly play a trailer for everybody so they can remind themselves what a wonderful piece of work that was, and then we'll have a little chat about it, how everything worked. So here we go. Here is Red Sparrow.
Morning, Mama. What is it?
I have to go away for a while.
I was told to take a man to a hotel. They said he was an enemy of the state.
Take off your dress.
And in exchange, my mother would get the doctor she needed. Instead, they cut his throat. There could be no witnesses. So they gave me a choice. Die or become a sparrow.
From this day forward, you will become sparrows. Weapons in a global struggle for power. You'll be trained in psychological manipulation. You must learn to push yourself beyond all limitation. Take off your clothes. When we are finished with you, the person you were will no longer exist. Every human being is a puzzle of need. You must become the missing piece, and they will tell you anything.
You have a gift. You know how to survive. This is what you were meant to do. There is a traitor in the government. His last known contact is an American. Get close to him.
I thought I saw you in the pool yesterday.
Are we going to become friends?
Is that what you want?
She's a sparrow. You only matter because of what you can do for them. Work with me and make these men pay.
You are better at this than any of us. Your only problem is you have a soul.
We can't trust a word that comes out of her mouth.
There's something else we're not seeing.
If she's compromised, she will be eliminated.
What have you done?
You belong to them. They'll never let you go.
I'll find a way.
Wow. You know what? I mean, I hope you got like some sort of thank you letter from, Jennifer, or honestly, I will send you one if she didn't. I honestly think, you made the world more beautiful place with this movie. It's just unbelievable. Her complexion and everything, and how it's just and then they really have great costumes, the lighting, everything. It was just such a beautiful movie, So tell me, how did that happen? So, how did that movie evolve? How did you work? I want to dig a little bit also into technicalities now.
Sure. Well, I have to give you a quick history of the players involved. Francis Lawrence is one of my favorite directors that I've ever worked with. And we had done probably 50 or 60 music videos in the early 2000s together. And it was always amazing work. And I was always his biggest fan. And I just think he's incredibly talented. And so we had worked together for a long time. And I did his first film, which was Constantine. I think that was back in around 2004, 2005 with Keanu Reeves. And with Yo Willems, the cinematographer on Red Sparrow, he had also worked with Francis on many projects, including the Hunger Games, and he had done videos back in the day. Actually, one of my favorite music videos I ever colored was Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River. Yo had shot that with Francis as well. So anyhow, one day I just got a call from Yo, and he said, Francis and I would love you to color Red Sparrow. And I was just thrilled because I love those guys so much, and I just think they're incredibly talented. So just to be a part of that project was incredible. So the first thing Yo wanted to do was to find a look, create a LUT that we thought that we thought would look good for the movie. So he explained, how he wanted it to look, and he sent me several references where he wanted to take it. And so we just did some tests. We did some small test shoots, and we eventually created a LUT that we thought, would work well for the film. And he used it when he was shooting, and it was a good way to test it out to see if, it was going to work when we did the actual theatrical color correction. The other thing Yo did while he was on the set was that when he would have time, it was all shot in Europe. So he would have time, he'd go back to his hotel, and he would grade some of the stills in a fashion that he thought looked good. And so I kept all of these stills for when we were ready to do the final grade.
So he was doing a little references for you and sending you what he wanted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because so what he did was he said, I'll give you a couple weeks to pre-color this. And so I used those references that he had given me as kind of the basis for my grade. So after I was finished the pre-color, he came in, and Yo's an incredibly busy guy, and he had very limited time to supervise the DI, and his concern was that we could get through it quickly. But so when I actually played him the pre-colored film, he felt like we were very close already because we had done so much work previously, to make sure that we knew what the looks were going to be and everything. So the actual final grade with him supervising only took a couple weeks, and I think he was probably his fastest grade that he has ever done on
it is. You see, this is I think, Joe's down the point. How important is it the colorist gets involved before everything starts, right? Because you kind of get colorist early, and then you save weeks of grading, later on. I think, if producers haven't realized that by now, then, it's time for them to just, rewrite their rule book and say, I'm starting a shoot. Who's grading first, and then basically get people involved from the beginning. I really, really love that. There is in the chat, I can just see Stu Maschwitz asked the question, and I think it's a beautiful question. It's super relevant. You know, the fact that movie is called Red Sparrow, and you know, there is a particular red color in that movie. You know, like, you know, which is, you know, red is such a like a, there's such a wide spectrum of red, and you know, red can have various meanings based, you know, just on the like smallest nuances, right? And you know, that kind of red, you know, that represents the, you know, Eastern Bloc and so on is kind of there, is this kind of little muted, you know, like and he references it looks a little bit like Russian doll. So how did you, you know, do that? How did you control, you know, those tones and those hues? Where did they come from? Was, you know, how did that happen that you kind of went exactly for that particular color and hue?
I mean, we, you know, a lot of the colors we gave a lot of thought to, and especially in production. I mean, they shot a lot of those buildings were none of that. There was no sets. These were all the original, you know, kind of Eastern Bloc kind of looking buildings. And the reds, you know, we had talked about, and we just decided to go very deep with them. And the way we remembered, like, the Soviet Union, you know, the red of the flag and all that. We just tried to use that as a bit of a reference, but you know, we just wanted it to look good. That was our main thing. We didn't have like a specific, it has to be this, but we wanted to give the
it was a
film,
totally feel like you were like, okay, this particular red feels, and it was just the emotion that you were getting out of it, the kind of whole Russian Eastern feel. Okay, good. Now, another question I have from the audience is from Shaz, and he wants to know, how do you do your skin? Because, you know, in there, everybody does look amazing. I know, and I mean, look, you know, so please, you know, can you let us in? So how do you do skin? How far do you push it, or how exactly do you do? What tools do you use in DaVinci to get there?
I mean, to be honest, I keep it very simple. Like, I don't generally use, in features, I don't generally use a lot of secondaries unless, you know, we're trying to create a specific effect. I mean, when you're working with somebody like Yo, his lighting is so beautiful. He's very creative, but he's technical as well. And he's so good at it that when the film comes up, I mean, I just, you know, have done what I've done for years. I just put it in a place that I think looks beautiful, and I don't really get into keying it unless there's like a problem or something usually. So I'm not trying to be vague, but you know, I just try to use good taste and what looks good to me.
So do you qualify? Do you qualify faces? Like, you know, do you try to do secondary as a matte, or do you do window tracking? You know, how do you isolate a skin, or you try to get the skin right already in primary? What is your kind of tactic? How do you attack it?
In features, I do it with primaries more, but in a commercial, I mean, it's a completely different ball game. I'm tracking windows on the face because a lot of times we're trying to bring out more definition so that your eye, you don't have a lot of time in a commercial, so you want your eye to go to the actor right away. So quite often, yes, I'm tracking and doing those things, you know, like lifting the luminance on the skin if there's any kind of darkness issue. But in films, I don't do that as much because I'm working with DPs that are at such a level, like guys like Jonathan Stella and Yo. I mean, their lighting is so beautiful that it just comes up. I mean, it does come up looking pretty good.
I love it. But hey, talking about that, can I ask you something? Do you ever go to YouTube and watch, you know, kind of, you know, those kind of tutorials? Oh, this is how you color grade in DaVinci Resolve. Like, you know, do you ever watch any of those?
I do. I've kind of stopped doing it because I get confused. Not in every case, but a lot of times when I'm looking just to do like a simple setup of a scene, just to, you know, like the color of basic scene, I will look at all the technical things that are being done, and I'm like, I don't do any of that. And I hate to say it, but I mean, yes, I could be as complicated as the next guy, but I feel like the more you do that, sometimes you push it into an area that's not organic or natural. So I try to stay away from like really keying the life out of the picture because I mean, if you're with a good cinematographer, it should come up looking pretty good, and it usually
Nice.
does.
Thank you so much for saying that, because it is one of the things when I teach people as I first have to get them to undo the stuff that they learn from this kind of, YouTubers that sell themselves as a pro colorist and stuff. I just have to tell them, guys, you have to forget it. The best colorist, and now it's like, look, the best colorist says, keep it simple. Use the simplest tools, right? Don't even why complicate? I love it. Thank you for this. Before we continue, I want to play a commercial now, because we're going to go a little bit deeper into discussing the commercials, and I think you suggested it should be this one for Diet Coke. Any particular reason why you felt like this should be a one that we should show?
The thing that I like about this commercial is that for a colorist, you could make things look, very good, but this commercial shows you have to have the whole picture. You have to have amazing directors. You have to have great cinematographers, set design, what the costuming. You need it all. It has to be a whole package to end up with a really award-winning look. It's never like a colorist cannot take an image that doesn't have good set design or good costuming and make it incredible in most cases. I mean, you need all of it, and I think this spot shows that. It's the whole package. It has everything.
Okay, fantastic. Let's have a look. So this is the commercial for Diet Coke. Do what your mama says. What was it? What was the title of it again?
Yeah, I think that was.
That's what it. I love it though. I love it. Yeah. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Diet Coke? Were you my mom?
You should be so lucky. Because you know what moms do? Well, I suppose we should start with the whole giving you life thing. It seems like that should be enough. No? Okay. What about her ability to send shockwaves through the neighborhood without saying a word? Or whip up a ridiculous handmade costume that you forgot to tell her about? Not to make you happy, but because she had a reputation to uphold. She invented rideshare, called it carpool, and did it for free. She didn't need those dating apps either. You copied her jeans, her spin, her shoes, her scrunchie, and whether you realize it or not, her music.
Why not?
Oh, and she can win any argument in 4 words.
Because I said so.
Everything you're trying to do, she's already done it, did it better, and she did it with a Diet Coke in her hand. So, drink what your mama gave you.
I love it. Wow, I wonder, how many days of shoot that was, because almost every frame and every scene looked like a hero frame. It was just like, what is going on here? Unbelievable. So do you remember who did this?
Las Perez. It's a directing team. I believe one of the directors is from Spain and one is from Mexico. And I actually was working with the agency on this, but this directing team, if you look at their reel, this is the kind of, some of the kind of work they do. They have an outstanding look. It was beautiful. But when the agency brought the job into me, I looked at it, and the dailies actually were done quite well. And my first question to the agency was, how did the client feel about the dailies? Like, did they like the vibe? Because it was very colorful, of course, and all of that. And they said that they did. So basically with that material, I just tried to be true to what they shot, and tried to make it look
so that's a good point. So when you start doing that, you kind of look at the dailies, so, and there was also a question that just came up, which was an interesting question. I just really want to elaborate a little bit on that. Do you start first by finding a lot that is going to put you into ballpark, or how do you approach that kind of okay, there is what they liked, let me see how I'm gonna build that? So what do? Do you take their lot sometimes at all, or what do you do?
I think I've only taken somebody else's lot maybe one time, but and that's not.
Oh no! Don't tell me that. You don't know how much effort it goes into those lots. So then they go, only once. Oh my God! No.
And the only reason I say that is technically, like, the LUTs that we create, I know are technically perfect. So I get a little nervous taking one that I I haven't analyzed and looked at to make sure it's going to be fine for everything. But you're right, though. The main first decision in a grading session, for me anyway, is to decide on the LUT. And so I have to talk to the clients first and see how stylized do they want to go. And that's why I always look at their dailies and see where the dailies were put, because sometimes the DP will have a DIT on the set and they'll spend a bit of time trying to get the look where they want it. And sometimes it's a good guide for me. In commercials though, I mean, a DP and director could decide on a look, but then when the client sees it, they're going to have feedback as well. So I have to kind of talk to the creatives and then get a feel from them where they want it to go. And I'll generally show them a little more straight look and then a little more stylized look, and then see where they want, see what they want. And then based on that,
wait. So do you do this during the session or you do it before the session?
I do it at the beginning of the session. Because I don't want to like pick this very stylish LUT and then 2 hours into the session have them say, "Oh, I think we've gone too far. Yeah, let's start again." I try to get that main decision, everybody on the same page initially, right off the top. And then I find the great thing about that is, if I go to like say 3 or 4 scenes that are in the spot, and everybody looks at it and goes, "Yeah, that's kind of what we want." Then everybody, their shoulders just kind of relax because they've seen 3 or 4 scenes. They know it's going to look good. And then we can just enjoy the process at that point. So I find that helpful.
Yes. So basically, so you, Company 3 has got like, some company LUT folder that you basically know roughly what they are. And then, some of them could be film stock emulation, right? Or some of them are like so is this like how you work, right? So you go and you pick one that maybe is emulating that feel that they had. Then, with a little primer, you give them, some options. Is this like how you would best describe it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have my bag of the LUTs that I enjoy using because I know what they're going to do. But sometimes a client will have something very particular. And we have color scientists on staff who I can go to and say, we need this. It's not really this LUT. It's not that LUT. I need something a little bit in between. And they can make something for me, and that's going to be a little closer to what I need. And in this world, it's not just an SDR LUT that we have to think about. If we're working in TV, we have to have a LUT that's going to work for HDR as well.
Of course.
So it can get very complicated. So that's why we have.
So do you like to grade under the LUT or after the LUT? I mean, if it's like a 7 or 9 grade for commercials, because DaVinci can be so tricky to pull keys, and stuff like this, if it's like still on a log footage. Right. So what do you do? Do you like a grade after the LUT then?
I do both. Like I can grade under it and over it. In fact, that's for commercials. That's how I do it. For features, usually after the LUT for features. But because you're constantly trying to grab. You want the original color before it's been affected by the LUT when you're trying to get the secondaries.
Yes. That makes sense. This is exactly how I think it makes sense. Now I have to tell you one thing, which is a personal story. I have a friend here in Santa Monica, who's a really well-known commercials director, and and he went and he did a commercial for a car. He asked me not to reveal who he is because he felt embarrassed about when I told him that I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to mention this. He said, "Please don't say my name. I need to see this guy again, and I don't want to be embarrassed when I see him." In any case, what happened was this. So I told him, "Hey, so I have this, professional, kind of problem that every time somebody says I did something, I always ask, who graded it, right? This is my first question. I don't care what was the commercial. I say, who graded it, right?" He says, "Oh, Dave Hussey." I said, "Oh my God, oh really?" So I asked him, "So how did it go?" And then there was this silence. And then he said to me, now I have to tell you before I say what he said, he's a guy who uses DaVinci better than I do, right? He shows me the tricks and shortcuts. I was like, really? I didn't even know you can do that, right? His wife has got some yoga Instagram account and he's making her some great videos and grades them in DaVinci for her. You understand? So he's not an idiot for technology. He's using color grading himself a lot, right? He's really well skilled. You know what he said? He said, "Dado, he made it look so that I didn't believe it could look so good. I didn't believe this footage could look this good. The commercial looked better than I believed it could look, right? And Dave, I think for any colorist, this is the biggest compliment you can get, especially nowadays in time and age when everyone can open DaVinci and download a lot, slap on top of it and say, look, I made a great look, right? For you to be able to wow directors like this with your look and be able to get them leave the session saying like, I didn't even think it could look this good, is just unbelievable. Dave, I know that this is some, you must have it, but help me understand, what goes through your mind? How do you, what do you do? I don't want how that happens. Please let me just kind of understand. How do you approach this job? How do you manage to get these looks that people don't even believe that it was possible to be done?
Well, I think part of it is when you work in LA, a lot of the best people are here. So I get to work with some very high-end people, and they bring your game up. You learn so much from them. Like, I've worked with people like Joseph Kahn and Francis Lawrence and David LaChapelle. Like, all these people are so brilliant at what they do, and you learn as you're working over the years. So I can take everything I've learned from all of these guys and put it into my work. So it's always nice to hear, a good response from clients like that. But it is a lot of experience. Like, I'll give you an example of that. When I first started doing cars, I thought I knew how to color correct a car. But then I would start working with agency creatives. I remember some of them were from Detroit, and these guys had been doing it for 20 years. And I realized I knew nothing about it compared to what they knew. And the things, like the little tricks they would do, like wanting me to sharpen around, headlights and rims. And I just, it was like going to college all over again with these guys because they're just so experienced. And so now, after years of doing it, you just have all this knowledge of what you can do, and experience
and how to do
it. For something.
Yeah, no, that's just exactly. And when I speak to some of my friends and who are colorists, and they say to me, oh, you know what, the big commercials are all gone. I say, yeah, I know they're gone. Dave Hussey is doing all of them. Because this is like, I just go like that. Just when I spoke to you like this couple of weeks, you just tell me, I'm grading today, blah, blah, blah. I said, Dave, this is pretty much all the big jobs that are going at the moment. This is crazy. This is why they're gone. You do it.
What's fun is, like, you could take a food commercial, and it might seem a little bit on the outside as could be a little bit boring because all you're color correcting is lettuce and different food, right?
Yeah.
But when you learn all of the things that you can do to make it look better, it actually makes the session much more fun because you can go in and do all this little detail work and really make it look, come alive. It may sound like I'm saying two different things. Like, first of all, I say, well, I don't use very, very many secondaries, and I try to keep it simple. There are jobs where you do that. Like in features, you can, depending on the feature, you can just make the overall image look beautiful without getting too technical. But for cars and food, I get very technical. I window, I track, sharpen, soften, where I want your eye to go, and so there's all kinds of different ways to color, and one colorist can do it all, as far as you can be very technical sometimes and not other times. It's nice to be flexible and be able to
Yes, it's absolutely essential. I think, being a very niche is important just to separate yourself from the crowd. But I think the reality of our work today is just, you don't do only car commercials anymore. You don't. You need to do everything that comes your way and be good at it regardless. I think, you're a prime example of that concept. You have to be open. And Dave, do you still think that you try to learn new stuff? Do you still want to learn? And yeah?
Always. Because you're always, I think every colorist is insecure to some extent. You're always second guessing, okay, was that the best possible thing I could have done there? Yeah. And so you're always questioning everything. I don't know of one colorist who just was like, I know I did the perfect thing there. They're always challenging themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, I that's what I think. That's what I love about it. Is every day you come in, it's always something different, and no session ever goes the same way twice. So that kind of keeps it fun. You know, I enjoy that part of it.
And what is your attitude if there was now a new tool to appear that would just, you know, do some things and make some stuff, or, you know, like help or something like that? Would you be like against it, or would you say, no, actually, I do want to experiment and try to play with new stuff as well? What's your attitude towards like innovation in all this area? Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, anything that makes the process go faster and helps us. I never worry about a computer being able to just color correct everything without people, because I know my clients, they're always going to want to change things.
Exactly. I mean, I love it. I love that attitude. You know, I think this is fantastic. You know, this is exactly like, you know, what should be happening. You know, like because I do think, you know, that technology has enabled us. And I remember you telling me a story, like, what was that machine that was completely analog when you were grading first? You know, just tell me a little bit how you know, what was that? Please, you know, what?
Well, when I first started, it was a rank fine spot scanner, and you know, the whole system was analog. So you know, today we'll, you know, color correct all day long and then lay off at the end. But in those days where everything was analog, things would drift. So I would color correct a shot. I would get on the intercom, talk to my assistant. I would say, roll record. They would start recording. They'd say recording over the intercom, and I would hit play and then stop. And that's how you had to do it. It was one shot at a time. And you couldn't trust anything, because even the still store was analog. So if it was a particularly warm day, you know, the equipment might start to drift. So you might be matching on your analog still store to something that didn't look the same as it did that morning. So it was a whole different world. It's so much easier now. Yeah. And you know, also what I color corrected on was called an Amigo. There was no secondary color correction. It was 3 joysticks. You know, red, green, blue. You could do lift and the gamma and gain, and that was pretty much it. In fact, the old days, they wouldn't even let us put negative up on the rank. They would give us a low-con print because they were worried we might scratch the film.
Yeah, and so you had like a second copy, which was so bad looking sometimes as well, right?
So sometimes, yeah, because you know the light that you have to blow through one of these prints to get a nice image. That's why you'd have to do it low con, you know, so you'd get an okay image. But the funny part is, and this is how different the business is, we'd be color correcting. We'd get to the last scene, and one of the agency guys would say, "Oh, that title should be lower," and they'd all get up. And they'd say, okay, well, we'll have another print struck, and we'll adjust the caption and make it higher. So everybody would go away for a day and come back, and then we would do the process again. Can you imagine doing that today with these schedules?
No. But let's see. So let's say I'm a T-Mobile, right? You graded yesterday a T-Mobile commercial, right? So how many hours do I have to book you in order for you to grade my commercial?
You know, it depends on what kind of commercial it is. I mean, usually though, like we do it in 4-hour blocks. We can. This is
the 4-hour block is now what is considered to be like a booking kind of, you know, slot, right?
Yeah, like if you have a lot of different versions, you might need more time, but we can go pretty quickly. With cars, where it's more detail oriented and you're tracking a lot, it can take a lot longer. But if it's a, you know, a standard, like if you're doing an Expedia commercial where there's not like a lot of tracking involved and things, you can color pretty quickly. And that's another important thing. You know, for a colorist, you have to be a good colorist, but you also have to be able to work fast. And you know, in today's environment, it's really important. And with younger colorists, I always tell them, you know, learn, like whatever system you're using. I use Resolve. Learn it so well that you know where every button is without even looking at it. Because when you're in a session, it's different. You might get nervous. You might, you know, you really need to know your system. The pressure can, if you're not sure where something is, really learn the system well and be confident in just how to do everything. The experience will come as you work. But just know all of that, and it'll make for a lot more relaxed session.
Then you feel more confident, and then, you know, because I agree, like, you know, it's one thing to do it by yourself, but when people are, involved, is, they tense, then you feel the tension, then you block sometimes. What should, it's completely different experience. Talking of which, now COVID and everything, how did you adapt to working in this? I believe you are still 100% remote, isn't it? You don't.
Yes,
know,
I am. Yes.
So tell me, how did you guys adapt? How do you work at the moment?
Right now, I still come into the facility. I have a private entrance, and I come in, and we have a big building, so I really don't see anyone except for my assistant. We had always done for many years virtual sessions. I was constantly doing color sessions to Chicago, Minnesota, Miami, wherever. So that part of it I wasn't unused to, but now basically people are viewing on their laptops or ideally an iPad Pro, and we get on a Zoom call and we do the session. And it's been working very well. I mean, we've been doing it since March.
What kind of software do you use for them to view the session? Is there an application you're internal, or what is that
we do Streambox.
Streambox. Okay. And
Yeah.
that runs on a laptop or on an iPad as well, right? So they can see, your live stream as you're grading. They can see what you're doing, right?
Exactly. And you need a normal amount of bandwidth. Like if your kids are all home and you have 4 people playing video games, sometimes we'll get into a session where things might be stuttering a little, and we'll be like check your bandwidth. And long as it's running at a decent speed, usually the sessions go very, very smoothly. And to be honest, I think that after this is all over, some clients will be okay with continuing to do it.
I think so as well. I honestly think so as well. I don't think that things will go back to the way they used to be.
Yeah. What I'm also curious about is, most of the agencies I talk to, they haven't gone back to their buildings yet. So I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. And look, Dave, something's changed as well, which is a significant, thing that it happens slowly so we don't notice it. But what's happened was we stopped watching TV for commercials, We really exposed to advertising more on our phones or computers, whatever we use, right? Phone is number one. I believe Google published just the last month a figure that in the US, 85% of digital advertising is viewed on a mobile phone, right? And then, Apple releases an iPhone 12, which has a Dolby Vision certified screen, right? 1200 nits HDR screen. And you just go well, the game's changed now, because we don't really grade to some highly compressed MPEG-2 stream for cable TV. We are now grading for HDR screens in high resolution that people have this far from their nose, right, where they can see every little detail. And now, why do I need to sit with Dave on a calibrated, monitor if at the end of the day, everyone's ever going to see it the way how I'm seeing it right now on the phone anyway, right? So you see, this is kind of what defies the purpose of coming to you and sitting with you in session and looking at your monitor, because that was in the past the only way for us to see the calibrated image, right? Now, not anymore.
Right.
Look, we all have a fantastic screens in our hands that we can say and judge, how things are looking. That's really, I think, what is also going to defy the purpose. I mean, probably that kind of creative, collaborative work when you're in session is just so wonderful, when you're working together and people, that's something that, that is something going to be missing. But hopefully with Zoom sessions, how do you handle these Zoom sessions? Because this is sometimes so hard, isn't it? How does it work for you? How many people do you get normally on a Zoom session when you're grading, remotely? How does that work?
Sometimes I can have as many as 6 or 7 creatives on the line along with producers. So it can be a lot, but it actually goes surprisingly well, honestly. I think what I tend to do now more is once I get the vibe of where they're going, I go ahead and color correct everything, the entire spot. And then I'll just go, after it's already timed, I'll go through shot by shot and then get their input. So I try to give them something really good to look at first, and then they can just, adjust details, like story points and things like that. So I'm trying to take some of the work from them so I can get the main body of it done, and they can focus on the more detailed client-oriented things. And it's actually fine. I mean, I'm surprised. I do miss having clients in the room just for relationship reasons, and just we have fun, most times, and I do miss that. But this is a very viable way to do things for sure.
Beautiful. Dave, this was such a unbelievable, contribution to everybody who's online and everybody who's gonna watch this video. I think, I really love the fact that you demystify, this. There is no magic, I just love the way, and the main message that I will definitely carry is that the simplicity is the key. Your way of grading is just, makes things look beautiful, but you keep it simple, and I think that's where the beauty is, in that simplicity. So I want to have just a couple of questions. We're overrun a little bit, but I just want to ask a couple of people, there's questions coming up, but just when somebody asks, are you big on printer lights? What do you think about that?
I really don't have an idea, because I've never used them, honestly. I know some colors too, but I've never done it.
You see how different the world is. You have people who say, I only work printer lights, I never touch anything else. And are you like a Stefan Sonnenfeld, that you don't like to use gamma?
I think I use more. Well, anybody uses more gamma than Stefan, because he does not like to use it. I use gamma.
And then basically somebody asked, is there it seems that work that's been graded at company 3 has got certain feel. Do you guys have that, or do you just this is really just the way, the quality of work that each one of you does? This is not somehow that the company policy has to look like this.
Right. No, there's no secret sauce that way. We just work with incredibly talented people, and I feel like we're pretty good at what we do. So we have a nice amount of good work out there.
Oh, very good. And basically, look, there's quite a few people who would love to be mentored by you, So anytime, you decide, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon with your schedule, but anytime you kind of feel like, okay, I want to take it easy, and you ever want to contribute, just let us know. We'll find enough people who would want to learn from you. So just so you know. So, there's definitely everybody would love to, learn from someone like you. Dave, on that note, I want to thank you for this. This is, huge, contribution to all of us. I can't thank you enough for, spending time with us. And I want to let you go back to your session, because your producer's probably knocking on your door going like, why are we still talking?
I locked myself in.
Yeah. Tell me, what is your next job? What are you doing now? What's the first thing you're doing?
A lot of TV is starting up now, so I'm doing a lot of different camera tests for different TV shows. I'm working with Kira Kelly on one particular show right now. And Kira actually just made it into the ASC, so. Congratulations, Kira.
Wow, that's a great news. Yes. Okay, good. So on that note, thank you all. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I mean, this was such a wonderful, the chat was super busy, right? It was amazing, Thank you. Thank you all guys for if you wouldn't be tuning in, we wouldn't be doing it, as frankly as that. Dave, I owe you something. One day, hopefully, we'll meet and we'll have a beer somewhere in Santa Monica or something like that, hopefully, and we meet in person when everything's over. You are inspiration to all of us, so just so you you definitely have a special place in the color grading world. So, we all aspire, to everything you do, and you inspire us with your work. So thank you for, taking an hour and speaking to us. It was a great honor and great pleasure. And on that note, have a lovely day, and I hope we see each other sometime soon as well.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.